The distress signal came from the Kepler mining station at exactly 0347 hours. Admiral Chen Wei stood on the observation deck of Lunar Command, watching the holographic display flicker with red warning lights. The message was simple and terrifying. An alien warship had entered the Sol system, not just any warship. A Vorthic Dreadnought. The Vorthic Dominion had conquered 17 star systems in the past century. Their dreadnoughts were legendary across the galaxy. Each one measured nearly 8 kilometers in length. They carried weapons that could crack planetary shields like glass. The smaller species of the galactic community had learned to flee at the mere sight of these vessels. Entire civilizations had surrendered without firing a single shot. But Earth was not like other worlds. Chen Wei turned to his communications officer. "Send the signal. Wake up the Prometheus." Deep beneath the surface of Mars, in a hangar carved from ancient rock, lights began to flicker on. Engineers who had spent years maintaining the sleeping giant rushed to their stations. The Prometheus was humanity's answer to the threats that lurked among the stars. It was not the largest ship Earth had ever built. It was not even the most advanced. But it was something far more dangerous. It was a ship designed by a species that had spent its entire existence at war with itself. The Prometheus measured 4 kilometers from bow to stern. Its hull was covered in layers of composite armor that humanity had developed after centuries of warfare. Every inch of the ship reflected lessons learned from countless battles. The ancient Greeks had taught humans about formation and discipline. The Romans had shown them logistics and engineering. The world wars had demonstrated the importance of air superiority and combined arms. The Cold War had pushed them to develop nuclear weapons and stealth technology. Every conflict, every tragedy, every hard-won victory had contributed to the design of this vessel. Captain Sarah Okonkwo received the activation order while she was eating breakfast on the Martian surface base. She had been waiting for this moment for 15 years. Her crew of 3,000 had trained for this scenario hundreds of times. They knew every system on the Prometheus, like they knew their own heartbeats. Within 2 hours, the Prometheus rose from its underground berth and climbed into the Martian sky. The engines burned bright against the red landscape as the ship accelerated toward the outer system. Inside the command bridge, Captain Okonkwo studied the tactical display showing the enemy vessel. The Vorthic Dreadnought had emerged from hyperspace near Jupiter. It was moving slowly toward the inner planets, scanning everything in its path. The alien commander was probably confused. According to galactic records, Earth was a minor world populated by primitive beings who had only recently discovered faster-than-light travel. The Vorthic had expected easy prey. Commander Thrall stood on the bridge of the Dominion vessel Crushing Tide. His 4 eyes swept across the sensor readings with growing interest. The system was rich with resources. The third planet showed signs of extensive civilization. This would be a valuable addition to the Dominion's territory. "Any military response?" Thrall asked his sensor officer. "One vessel approaching from the 4th planet, Commander. Small by our standards. Approximately half our length." Thrall made a sound that passed for laughter among his species. "One ship. These humans are either very brave or very foolish. Open a communication channel. I will give them the standard offer of surrender." The message reached the Prometheus 30 minutes later. Captain Okonkwo listened to the translated words with a calm expression. The Vorthic offered a simple choice: submit and become servants of the Dominion. Resist and be destroyed. Every species the Vorthic had encountered had chosen submission. Okonkwo pressed the response button. "This is Captain Sarah Okonkwo of the Earth Defense Force vessel Prometheus. We have received your message. Our answer is no. Turn back now, or face the consequences." On the Crushing Tide, Commander Thrall was genuinely surprised. No species had ever refused the offer so directly. He ordered his weapons officers to prepare for combat. This would be a quick lesson for these primitive humans. The two ships closed the distance over the next 6 hours. During this time, Captain Okonkwo gathered her senior officers for a final briefing. The tactical situation was clear. The Vorthik ship outmassed them significantly. Its weapons were designed to destroy planetary defenses. On paper, the Prometheus had no chance. The war was never fought on paper. "Remember your training," Okonkwo told her crew. "The Vorthik have never lost a ship in battle. That makes them predictable. They will expect us to fight like every other species they have conquered. We will not give them that satisfaction." The Prometheus reached weapons range first. Instead of opening fire immediately, Okonkwo ordered the ship to change course. The Prometheus began moving in an erratic pattern, using its smaller size and superior maneuverability to complicate the enemy's targeting solutions. The Vorthik weapons were powerful, but they were designed to hit stations and planets. They were not built for agile targets. Commander Thrall watched the human ship dance across his tactical display. His weapons officers fired volley after volley, but the human vessel seemed to anticipate every shot. This was wrong. The Vorthik had perfected their combat tactics over thousands of years. How could this primitive species avoid their fire so effectively? The answer was simple. Humans had been dodging projectiles since the first stone was thrown in anger. They had developed armor, shields, and tactics to survive. Their pilots were trained from childhood on video games that rewarded quick reflexes and spatial awareness. The crew of the Prometheus did not see the Vorthik weapons as mysterious alien technology. They saw them as very big guns, and humans had been dealing with big guns for centuries. The Prometheus opened fire with its main weapons. Unlike the Vorthik, humans had designed their weapons for precision rather than raw power. Targeted missiles struck the crushing tide's sensor arrays. Railgun rounds punched through weapon ports. Each shot was calculated to cause maximum disruption without wasting ammunition. Commander Thrall felt his ship shudder from the impacts. Warning lights appeared across his command console. The human weapons were small, but they were hitting weak points that should have been impossible to identify. How did they know where to strike? The humans knew, because they had spent thousands of years learning how to break things. They had studied every structure, every machine, every living creature to find vulnerabilities. Their scientists had written countless papers on failure points and stress fractures. This knowledge had been built into the Prometheus's targeting systems. The ship's computers analyzed the Vorthik vessel in real time, identifying weak points based on universal engineering principles. The battle continued for 3 hours. The crushing tide landed several hits on the Prometheus, but the human ship's layered armor absorbed the damage. Each hit that penetrated was quickly contained by damage control teams who had trained for every possible emergency. Fires were extinguished. Hull breaches were sealed. Injured crew members were treated and returned to duty. The ship took punishment and kept fighting. On the crushing tide, things were falling apart. The Vorthik had never faced an enemy that could survive their weapons. Their damage control procedures were basic because they had never needed anything more. When the Prometheus destroyed their main power coupling, the alien crew had no backup plan. Commander Thrall stared at his dying ship with disbelief. Half his weapons were offline. His shields had failed. The human vessel was still out there, circling like a predator waiting for the kill. He had commanded the crushing tide for 50 years. He had conquered 7 worlds. Now he was going to die at the hands of a species that had discovered space travel barely 2 centuries ago. Captain Okonkwo watched the enemy ship drift helplessly. She could destroy it with a single volley. But that was not the human way. Not when there was another option. Open a channel to the Vorthik vessel. Commander Thrall heard the human's voice over his damaged communication system. The words were translated by his computer, but he could hear something in her tongue that transcended language. "Commander, your ship is disabled. Your crew is dying. I am offering you a choice that your people have never offered anyone else. Surrender, and we will rescue your survivors." You will be treated with dignity and returned to your territory after the war ends. This is not a trick. This is how humans treat defeated enemies when those enemies are willing to accept peace." Thrall was silent for a long moment. The concept of mercy from a victorious enemy was foreign to Vorthic culture. They did not spare the weak. They did not show compassion to the conquered. Yet here was this human, offering him something he had never considered possible. "Why?" he finally asked. "You could destroy us. You have won." Okonkwo's response was calm and measured. "Because killing you serves no purpose. Because your crew members have families waiting for them. Because we have learned that enemies can become friends, and friends are more valuable than corpses. Surrender, Commander. Let us show you a different way." The crushing tide lowered its remaining weapons. Escape pods began launching from the damaged vessel. The Prometheus moved alongside the alien ship and began rescue operations. Vorthic survivors were brought aboard and treated by human medical officers who had studied alien physiology specifically for this situation. Word of the battle spread across the galaxy within days. A single human ship had defeated a Vorthic Dreadnought. More importantly, the humans had spared the survivors. The galactic community had never seen anything like it. The Vorthic Dominion had lost more than a ship. They had lost their reputation for invincibility. 6 months later, the Vorthic High Council sent ambassadors to Earth. They did not come to threaten or demand. They came to understand how a young species had achieved what no other civilization had accomplished. The humans welcomed them with open arms and began teaching them something the Vorthic had never learned. Peace was not weakness. Mercy was not surrender. And humanity, for all its violent history, had discovered that the greatest victory was not destroying your enemy. It was making them your friend. Admiral Chen Wei stood on the observation deck of Lunar Command, watching the Vorthic diplomatic shuttle descend toward Earth. Behind him, a holographic display showed the Prometheus returning to its berth on Mars. The ship had done its job. It had protected humanity's home. But more importantly, it had shown the galaxy what humans truly were. They were warriors who hated war. They were conquerors who preferred cooperation. They were a species that had spent millennia fighting among themselves and had finally learned the most important lesson of all. The strongest hand was the one that reached out in friendship. Earth had sent a single dreadnought to face the galaxy's greatest threat, and that was all humanity had required. Not because the Prometheus was invincible, but because the people who built it understood something fundamental about existence. True power was not about destruction. It was about the choice to build something better. The galaxy would learn this lesson, and humans would be their teachers.